From the Gulf States newsroom, this is the Gulf States Gumbo, your weekly serving of stories from Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana. I'm community engagement producer Nellie Beckett, chopping it up this week. On today's show, all that cost-cutting happening in Washington is being felt in the South, too. From Louisiana schools no longer getting federal dollars to buy local food, to the loss of funding meant to stop the spread of HIV in Alabama.
If that money goes away and all those people are on the streets, we are going to have an epidemic like we haven't seen since the early days of HIV.
That's all coming up on the Gulf States Gumbo. Federal funding has played a major role in fighting the HIV epidemic in the U.S., especially in hard-hit places like Alabama. But DOGE cuts and policy changes under the Trump administration threaten to undo that progress, according to advocates. Our public health reporter Drew Hawkins reports from Birmingham.
Madonna helped him relax.
David Austin is sitting in his living room on the south side of Birmingham. He's watching a celebrity documentary on YouTube with his partner, Walter Smith, having one of those meaningless arguments that couples have, this time about Johnny Depp.
Did Madonna and Johnny Depp ever get married?
David and Walter have been together for a few years now. They're both HIV positive, and Walter has helped David as he's battled opioid use disorder. David pauses the Johnny Depp documentary to prepare some fentanyl.
Okay, well, right now I'm going to put something in the pressure cooker.
The couple met on a bus after David first came to Birmingham.
Me and Walter would go all over. He would, show me his state, his city. Then I got plugged into 1917 clinic.
The 1917 clinic in Birmingham has helped them access treatment for HIV and substance use. And they're able to pay their rent with help from a service organization called AIDS Alabama. Both of those organizations rely heavily on federal funding, but that funding is now in jeopardy after cuts from the Trump administration. Dr. Ellen Eaton, who treats people with HIV in Birmingham, says she's having tough conversations with her patients about the future.
I am honest with them that I don't know what their care will look like.
The 1917 clinic gets funding from the Department of Health and Human Services, from programs that support health care, prevention, and research for HIV. But DOGE cuts to the health department have slashed at least a quarter of its budget. Among those cuts, funding for HIV.
And so I think there's a tremendous uncertainty. I know there is from what I'm hearing from partners in the field and patients.
Eaton says the funding doesn't just help her patients manage HIV. It also helps people with their substance use, including David Austin.
I know that treating the HIV alone is a Band-Aid if I don't treat the substance use that led to the HIV.
It's not just health care that could be at risk from federal cuts, but other support. Kathy Hires is CEO of AIDS Alabama. Its main focus is housing.
I just can't express strongly enough how important housing is to a person living with HIV.
Hires says housing is health care. It provides stability so people like David and Walter can access treatment and stay on medication. And like the 1917 clinic, AIDS Alabama also relies on federal funding from the health department. Hires says she's most worried about the dismantling of the Center for Disease Control's Department of HIV Prevention.
How in the world do we stop HIV without prevention? It's just nonsensical.
The Trump administration has said it will move some prevention work to a new Administration for a Healthy America. But experts say these cuts put an already fragile support system at risk. Jen Cates is Director of Global Health and HIV Policy at KFF, a health policy research group. She says for places like the 1917 clinic and organizations like AIDS Alabama, losing any funding could have big impacts.
There's not another bucket of money that can replace that funding.
And cuts to programs across the federal government could leave people like David Austin at particular risk.
If there's reductions in support for people who are using drugs or trying to stay off drugs or needing to just harm reduction, coupled with reductions in support for HIV directly, that would be more like a double or triple whammy for people in those pretty vulnerable positions.
Federal money for HIV has been well spent in Alabama, reducing new infections at almost twice the rate as places that didn't get federal funding, according to the CDC. Hires with AIDS Alabama says the federal cuts could be devastating.
If that money goes away and all those people are on the streets, we are going to have an epidemic like we haven't seen since the early days of HIV.
Hires says the U.S. has the tools to end the HIV epidemic, and with these cuts, she fears those tools are being intentionally thrown away. For the Gulf States Newsroom, I'm Drew Hawkins.
The Gulf States Newsroom is a team of journalists working with NPR and local public media stations in Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana to cover the issues that matter to you. Email us, connect@gulfstatesnewsroom.org.
Louisiana lawmakers are asking Congress to bring back a federal program that helped schools buy food from local farms. It's one of the cuts the Trump administration made to the Department of Agriculture. WWNO and WRKF education reporter Aubri Juhasz explains how one school district used the money.
It's lunchtime at Northwestern Elementary outside Baton Rouge. The kids pick out a box of milk and place it on a tray. There's fried chicken, a roll, a vegetable of their choice, and some pineapple.
It's yellow. There was yellow food.
Yesterday was Taco Tuesday. Bianca Coates says the kids love anything with beef.
A fan favorite is beefaroni. Beefy Nacho Day is like an all-time favorite across the district. We also do the homemade meatloaf.
Coates is the supervisor of school nutrition for Zachary Community Schools, which includes Northwestern Elementary. She's used 2 federal programs to purchase beef. The first provides discount foods to schools. The second was a farm-to-school grant. She used that to buy local grass-fed beef.
You can tell that the grass-fed beef is much leaner. It doesn't have as much fat in it.
It's healthier, she says, and tastes better too.
We rather have it local, of course, because we know exactly where it's coming from and how it's being processed.
That beef comes from a small family-owned farm less than an hour away. Muse 3 Farm in Greensburg. Woo-wee! On a windy day, dozens of cows are grazing on ryegrass.
As long as we have grass, we are happy.
Chris Muse founded the farm with his 3 brothers after they'd moved away from the family land and had other careers. Their father was a farmer too. Coming home, Muse says his goal was to feed local kids.
Kids gonna eat every day at those schools, right? And you would think, okay, well, where are most of their food coming from? Is it coming locally? And the reality is, no.
In the most recent farm-to-school census in 2022, only half of Louisiana schools reported serving any local food. It was about the same across the country. The problem is cost. Muse's premium grass-fed beef is $10 a pound. That discount beef that schools in Zachary also buy, that's $4 a pound. That's where the grant program came in. It launched a few years ago to give schools federal funding they could only spend on local food. When he heard about it, Muse remembers thinking,
this is what I have been waiting on.
Suddenly, schools had thousands of dollars to spend, and they wanted to buy his beef.
They were calling me now, saying, hey, okay, we're ready. What can you do? What can you do?
Bianca Coates from Zachary Schools was the first person to call.
Each order, 10,000 pounds of beef.
Muse says demand was so high he had to turn some schools away. He got other farms involved in the program, and they planned to grow what schools were asking for.
We have a roadmap and a plan that I can go out to my farm and other farmers that says, hey, the school system needs tomatoes. Are they going to need cucumbers? Are they going to need lettuce?
But then the Trump administration came into office and the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, started making cuts. More than $11 million for Louisiana schools to purchase food from local farms disappeared. So did millions more in future funding. Without that money, Coates with Zachary Schools says she can't afford to buy local beef. Muse, the farmer, says he's heard the same from all his schools. Marlene Schwartz researches food policy at the University of Connecticut. She says it's unfair to expect schools to be able to purchase food directly from farms without government support.
To sort of simultaneously, get the best price and have the highest quality, unfortunately in our food system in the United States, that's just not the way it works.
That means if people want kids to eat healthier food at school, then schools need more money. Schwartz says some states have funded their own programs, but it takes long-term investment.
It's not like the farmer can get an order and produce that food tomorrow. I mean, they need to have time to plan because they have to grow the food.
Back on the farm, Chris Muse says he hopes the Trump administration will realize they've made a mistake.
There's nothing bad you can say about that program.
Muse even brings his plants and animals to schools to teach kids about where food comes from and how they can make healthy choices.
I'm optimistic that once things settle down and we reorganize and restructure things, I feel that program is one of the programs that's going to come back.
After all, the Trump administration says it wants to make America healthy again. Muse says you can't get healthier than farm fresh. In St. Helena Parish, I'm Aubri Juhasz.
And now it's time for Gulf States Gems, a series that shines a light on some of the treasures of the region. Here with me to talk coffee in our region is public health reporter Drew Hawkins. Drew, thanks for talking with me.
Hey, Nellie. Always good to talk with you about coffee, really anything, but especially coffee.
Thanks, Drew. So last week I drove from Birmingham to New Orleans, a city that's known for great food and drink, but also a hub for amazing coffee. And so this trip, I grabbed coffee with you at Congregation Coffee in the super charming village-like neighborhood of Algiers Point. I mean, it was great. We ran into sources, we ran into teachers and other community members who are just there to co-work or just chop it up in this amazingly cute cafe that makes some of the most potent espresso in town.
I think New Orleans is maybe one of the smallest places in the world. I mean, you're going to find somebody wherever you go. And yeah, in my little neighborhood, Algiers Point, it's the smallest neighborhood in the smallest city in the world. So yeah, of course, we go there. I'm definitely going to run into people that I know that frequent it often.
Yeah, Congregation is always a must-stop on my New Orleans trips, and it's easy to see why. Amazing coffee and just a hub of civic life. So then, after we met, I grabbed a muffaletta for the road, and I headed to Biloxi, where I visited the Mardi Gras Museum, the Civic Center, and the library to scope out community partners. So if this sounds like something you'd want to do, we're hiring. The Gulf States Newsroom is seeking a new community engagement reporter based out of Mississippi Public Broadcasting in Jackson. In this role, you'd travel the region, telling the stories of the Gulf South that people want to hear. You would identify stories that meet the needs of our audience and advance joy and levity with a great team. We believe in teamwork, training, and hyping each other up.
And we're not just talking too. Our team does kind of rule. It would be great. Come work with us. You would love it.
Yeah. So if this sounds like a good fit, check out the job posting on mpbonline.org. This week's show was hosted by me, Nellie Beckett, and is cooked up by the Gulf States Newsroom team. Our theme music is by DJ Supreme. Special thanks to our partner stations WBHM, Mississippi Public Broadcasting, WWNO, and WRKF. You can find us in your podcast feeds every Friday. Look us up and be sure to subscribe. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to stir your roux.